All right, let's go over some quarterback picks here. We're talking about Mac Jones going against this Dolphins defense that ranks 28th against opposing quarterbacks. Jones is coming off a solid game last week against the Bills where he threw for 272 yards and 2 touchdowns. This week he gets to go against another really good team, but against a defense who gives up a lot of points to the quarterback position. Most of these points are due to just teams needing to throw the ball just to keep pace with Tua, Tyreek, and the Dolphins offense. Mac Jones may have turned the corner on this season, and if he has, he should be a nice piece to your team if you are in need of a quarterback. Next guy we're going to talk about here is Kenny Pickett going on that Jaguars defense that ranks 25th against opposing quarterbacks. This is a guy who hasn't been very good fantasy-wise. He has all the weapons to be a successful fantasy option, but he just hasn't put it all together just as of yet. This is a week that I can see Pickett actually show you a little something. Give Pickett a chance this week if you are in need of a quarterback to head your team. The Jaguars have given up a lot of fantasy points against opposing quarterbacks. With the emergence of George Pickens and with Deontay Johnson back in action, it's only a matter of time before we see Pickett really start to perform. Last quarterback I'm going to talk about here is Sam Howell going against that Eagles defense that ranks 24th against opposing quarterbacks. Howell is a quarterback who has had a lot of ups and downs this season. He has the arm to keep up with the best of them, but it just sometimes his decision making just really keeps me puzzled. Against the Eagles, Howell will need to sling the ball all over the field to even have a chance for victory. As I say often on this channel, the more opportunity equals more fantasy points, and this week, Howell will have every chance to take a ton of points with a ton of throws. If he can connect on some of these deep balls, Howell should really be able to have a good fantasy week in store just for you. Get Howell in your lineups if you need a quarterback. Let's move right along to the running backs here. First guy we're talking about here is Gus Edwards going against the Cardinals defense that ranks 29th against opposing running backs. Edwards has a full control over this running back room. Last week he had 14 carries to Justice Hill's 4. He also had an 80-yard reception on top of that as well. The Ravens should get an early lead against the Cardinals, and I see them turning towards Edwards to really start to chew up that clock. The Cardinals just give up too many yards on the ground. Edwards looks like a solid play to me this week against the Cardinals. Next guy I'm talking about here is DeAndre Foreman going against that Chargers defense that ranks 17th against opposing running backs. Foreman is getting a ton of work right now on the ground, and he's just, with the injuries to Herbert and Johnson, he's the man right now. 16 carries for 2 touchdowns on the ground with another touchdown in the air last week against the Raiders. I love the way that Foreman runs. I was shocked when he was a healthy scratch at the beginning of the season. I think Foreman is the best running back on the roster, and I know that I may be in the minority with that opinion, but I believe it to be true. Foreman is getting to show everybody that he belongs on a team as a number 1 running back. He was good when he was the main with the Panthers, and he's good here. It is what it is. Foreman should have a good day against the Chargers. Next guy we're talking about here is Raheem Mostert taking on that Patriots defense that ranks 18th against opposing running backs. What can I say about Mostert? This guy is just good. Going against a beatable Patriots defense, I can see Mostert once again giving you a solid outing for your fantasy team. With A-Chain kind of out of the picture right now for the time being, this is Mostert's backfield. There is no other running back getting more than 2 carries in a game. Start Mostert this week with confidence. Now let's move it right along to the wide receivers. First guy we're talking about here is Zay Flowers going against that Cardinals defense that ranks 28th against opposing wide receivers. Flowers is an electric rookie that can provide immense value this week against the Cardinals defense. I see the Ravens completely demolishing the Cardinals, and as a big reason why would be Zay Flowers. Flowers excels in the deep ball, and the Cardinals struggle guarding the deep ball. So look for the Ravens to get out to an early lead with Zay Flowers leading the way. Just get Flowers in your lineup. The next wide receiver we're talking about here is Romeo Dubois going on that Vikings defense that ranks 26th against opposing wide receivers. Jordan Love looks to Dubois quite a bit in games, especially in the red zone. Even with Love liking to spread the ball around to all of his weapons, Dubois is one of the most consistent on this team as far as wide receivers go. The Vikings have a defense who can be beaten. Last week Dubois had 30 yards and a touchdown, and I can definitely see him doing even better than that against this Vikings team that's going to be scoring a lot of points. Love is going to need to be throwing the ball, and Dubois should be the one benefiting from it. Last wide receiver we're talking about here is Elijah Moore taking on that Seahawks defense that ranks 27th against opposing wide receivers. Whether or not Deshaun Watson or PJ Walker starts for the Browns, Moore should get his share of targets just to make him a viable fantasy option this week. The Seahawks secondary loves giving fantasy points out to opposing wide receivers. Moore is a shifty wide receiver who can make a ton of sense to have in your lineups this week. Moore should have a safe floor for you. Get him in your lineup. Let's go over some tight ends here. First guy we're talking about is Michael Mayer, taking on that Lions defense, ranks 31st against opposing tight ends. Mayer's a tight end with a ton of talent. I really enjoy watching this guy play football. He gets a good target share, and against the Lions defense, we really can see this tight end type of shine. There's actually a decent chance that he is on your waiver wire as well, so go check that out. If you're unhappy with your tight end position, give a look to Michael Mayer this week. It may actually shock you. Go pick him up if he's on your waivers. Next tight end we're talking about here is Jake Ferguson. Taking on that Rams defense, ranks 27th against opposing tight ends. The Cowboys have a potent offense, and if they can just start hitting on all cylinders, Ferguson has a chance for a really nice game against this Rams defense. Ferguson either gives you a really nice game or a massive poop stain. Now, I'm just hoping that it's more of a nice game to see from this Cowboys offense, and he can be just going off with this. They're coming off of a bye, and they could be rejuvenated, So Ferguson should be a nice play this week as long as he doesn't kind of go into that poop stain status. Last tight end we're talking about here is Tyler Higbee, going on against that Colts defense that ranks 26th against opposing tight ends. I really like Higbee this week. He was on, third on the team in targets last week. He's still involved into the rotation. Higbee gets to go against this Colts defense who's really been struggling against that tight end position. They do have Cooper Kupp out there. They got Puka Nacua, but Tyler Higbee is definitely that third option. Last week, they allowed David Njoku 5 receptions for 54 yards. If you're in a half point or a full point per reception league, that's pretty solid for a tight end. If your name isn't Travis Kelce, a 10-point game for a tight end is pretty amazing. Get Higbee in your lineups. He has the potential for getting you 10 plus points. I like his production. Now on to the Bengal Tiger start of the week. The Bengal Tiger start of the week is running back Damen Pierce. Pierce is going up against a Panthers defense giving up the 31st most points to opposing running backs. Pierce was outplayed by Singletary in week 6, but don't let that fool you. Now, they were in a game script against that Saints defense that really doesn't allow you to run down their throats. You need a scat back out there against the Saints, and that's why they had Singletary out, who got a lot of run. So now they get the Panthers defense, who does nothing but allow you to run down all over them. I can see Pierce easily getting over 100 yards rushing this week. This easily makes him the Bengal Tiger start of the week.